it up again real quick.
Oh, and then Cece and Elizabeth, I'll get us started in a minute as after folks join us.
Perfect. Good.
Great.
Oh, good.
How have you been? Good.
Doing all right. Doing all right.
Good.
Hello, Mrs. Solomon. Good to see you from Ohio. All right. We got lots of local folks joining us, different organizations, different individuals and interests. So thank you guys for coming in. Welcome in. Glad to have you here. Thank you for your patience as we got our room open. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Zoom room. Those of you who've attended 2 sessions before this, I hope you've gotten a chance to have a little stretch or refreshment. All right, it's 11 o'clock, so we're going to start our session. So good morning and thank you for coming again. I'm Tara Green. I'm going to be your session host today, just to help things move along. And we also have Marley Case with us today, hosting the Zoom link session or link for us. So if you have any technical questions, you can send those in the chat to Marley individually. And we'll use the chat today. So if you have questions or comments, you can put them in there and we'll keep track of them. So if we have time, we can get to those there. So you've landed in the session called Connections Through Intergenerational Programs. And we will be recording this session so that it can be available on the Btcc website. So if you like to kind of simmer on your thoughts and come back to them, you don't have to feel like you need to capture every little note-taking detail here. You have a chance to connect with it later. It'll be there along with any other things our speakers have shared today. So today I'm very excited to welcome Elizabeth Stell and Cece Marin Puntarelli. They have a great topic for us today as we think about connections. So thank you both for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. We're happy to be here. We're very grateful.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us and for this opportunity for us to share a little bit about what we have learned and worked on having to do with intergenerational programming. It would be really nice to see if anyone has experience with this. So if you have, I guess we can put that in the chat box too, just to say anything that you have done as far as working as we go ahead. If you want to fill that out as we start introducing ourselves and telling you a little bit about ourselves and our journey with intergenerational programming. And I'm going to try and change the screen.
Okay, well, we're technologically challenged, so.
Yes. Okay. So I'll start. The first time I heard about intergenerational, so first of all, a little bit about us. I have been involved in early childhood education for a long time. I was the director at a local NAEYC accredited program called St. Mark's Nursery School and Kindergarten. And before, I was the director, I was a teacher there. My background is in elementary education. And at the present time, I'm working on my doctorate in early childhood education. So teaching IU students as well as learning more about and studying intergenerational programming with young children and elders at a same site intergenerational program, which we will be talking a lot about. But I first got my interest in this when I went to an NAEYC, which stands for National Association for the Education of Young Children, conference probably in like 1998. And I heard about a place out in California. Oops, sorry about that. A place out in California where a nursing home, an adult daycare, and a child daycare center were cohabited, were side by side in at a program, and the children and the elders got together for daily activities. I thought it was ingenious. It was heartwarming to see and hear what they had to tell us about. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could start something like that in Bloomington. However, I was pretty busy and I didn't get it done. So leading on to my friend Liz.
Okay, so I have also been an educator in Monroe County for years. I'm born and raised in Bloomington, and I have taught in public school, private school, charter school. I've taught everything from birth to 7th grade boys health. So I have run the gamut of it all. So I had not had the experience. And Cece and I know each other because she was my director. I did work at St. Mark's and started the kindergarten program there. And so,
people.
what's that?
Oh, someone said something. I think.
Okay.
We're on mute.
But so my experience with intergenerational programming was strictly from an amazing relationship with my grandmother, and what that brought to me as a human, and how much I valued that relationship, and wanting my own children to have that relationship with my grandmother and with my parents and my in-laws, and just trying to kind of foster that with them. That this didn't even, other than hearing about, kind of people buddying up together from time to time, I'd never really heard about intergenerational programming until I was I was teaching in a different school. A friend of mine, her sister-in-law was getting ready to start a new memory care center, and had said, hey, I don't know if you've heard about this, but she's thinking she wants to do a preschool. I think you'd be a person to talk to her about starting a preschool in this program. And I was like, you know what? I don't know much about it, but let me start looking into it. And I started researching and just falling in love with everything that I saw. And then reached out to Cece when it kind of became a more serious thing. And I was like, Cece, what do you know about this? I think I want to start this. And Cece's like, oh my God, I've looked at this before. Yeah, yes, let's work on it. And so together she mentored me and kind of helped me to start a program that we're going to share with you today.
So one of the things that we know about intergenerational programming, what we have described is something that's called same site intergenerational programming. It's a program where, again, these two different care facilities, care needs are brought together underneath a shared facility, and opportunities for intergenerational programming exists. However, there are so many other varied types of intergenerational programming opportunities. Intergenerational programming really does run the gamut all the way up to college level students or young people who are working with other generations. So it's not just preschool aged children. However, especially with same site intergenerational programming, that the most typical one is one where it is preschool age children with elders. Other examples of it include things like tutoring in schools. Often elders are brought in as volunteers or sometimes in paid positions to come into a classrooms and tutor and be an extra set of hands. Those programs are often called grand friends. There are also programs that run the gamut of being summer long or 3 or 4 times. They're intergenerational programs, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, that the two generations may get together for programming that has been planned deliberately. So there's a gamut of ways that we can see this happening. Our experience, particularly though, has been in the preschools, and so we'll show you some of the things that we have learned and know about that, and what it looks like, and things that become successful if you're looking for this kind of idea. So this wonderful quote, "The future isn't in the hands of coming generations, it's in the relationship between generations." Especially with our increasingly mobile society, there's a real need for children and elders to be brought together so that they can gain those types of friendships. Specifically what I'm studying is how do the children define these? Do they see these people as their friends, as grandparents? Is it a family type relationship? Like, how do they understand their relationship? It's really easy for us to look at the adults and see that, oh my gosh, look how they're enjoying it. We're also really interested in how the children make sense of this.
And I think in looking at intergenerational programming, one thing that was very appealing to me is in my career, I always wanted to be bringing service. And a part of that is building things for my community. And I really feel that intergenerational programming in any form does help build community and help foster relationships. And I think it's really important for the growth of our nation, you know, to have these communities built together that span these generations, that we're learning from people who have lived a life, and that is being carried on. And then that begins to be a, you know, just a habit forming situation for all involved. So like our younger children who are involved in intergenerational programming will go on to want to, you know, pay it back to others that are coming behind them. And it's something that's important, I think, to building strong communities. And so I think we also went to, you know, when talking about several different programs, we're going to give you kind of a really good picture of what Jill's House Intergenerational Preschool is. But knowing that within Jill's House Memory Care Center, not only does the preschool exist, but they have programs with Indiana University with tons of students that are involved in their programming at Jill's House, as well as we have Boy Scout troops that would come in and do special events. We had partnered with middle schools, local middle schools. They would come for Global Youth Day or Martin Luther King, a day on, not a day off. Like, we had a lot of different groups and different generations. We had the Lilly Scholar nominees all come and do things with the students and the elders. So we really tried to build in all different age groups into the program as well.
Okay, whoops. I'm terrible at getting this to advance. Okay, there we go. So Elizabeth is going to tell you a little bit about how Jill's House came to be.
So this is our beautiful living room that we have upstairs in the Jill's House Memory Care Center. And like I said before, Jill's House Memory Care Center was opening up, and there were only 11 residents at the time that we made the decision to build out the lower level, which was just garage space, and make it into a preschool. And when we started that, we did a lot of research about best programs and things that had gone on in other areas, and how to kind of do this relationship building with both the children and the elders. And it was a process, and we started out really small. So I was the director and the only teacher, the only employee, and I had 8 students. And that's how we started. And as we started, we also noticed that more residents were coming. Not only was it fairly new, and so families were learning more about this for their parents and grandparents, but also I do believe that there was a direct correlation with people wanting their parents and grandparents to be in a space with children. And so at Jill's House, we opened in 2017, is that right? Yeah, 2017. With just this very small group, and very quickly, 2 months after we began, another program in our community closed. And again, like I said, the community is very important to me. And so we had really a crisis in childcare in Bloomington at that time. And there was not a place for those families to bring their kids. So we worked on it, got money, got finances, and started building on. And so in the 2 years that I was director of the program, we grew from having 8 students to having about 48 students, and from having 1 employee to having, oh gosh, like 20 employees. So it was a really fast progression, but it is a beautiful community that is still thriving today. And we've had our ups and downs and our bumps, but it is, I'm no longer the director, but I was there this morning, still very involved in things there. And so this is the preschool that we created. This is the living room, and you can see children and residents together and enjoying each other. And we're going to talk to you a little more about what that enjoyment and that engagement looks like.
And we do have, I noticed that the present director at Jill's house is on here, so that's great, and the assistant, so.
Oh, they are? Did
Yeah,
they
I
make
saw
it?
their names.
Yay,
pop up.
hi guys.
So,
Hi, we figured it out.
Yay.
So research shows that there are certain practices that work best in intergenerational care settings. So if you're looking for something, and so the first 5 particularly can relate to both elders and children, but we want to start with a holistic approach. That means that we're considering the mind, the body, and the spirit. We see people as whole people. It's personhood. They have agency. We give them you need to accept that sense of agency. And in that, everyone has a choice whether or not they participate or not. The children are asked if they want to go upstairs and visit the residents. The residents have a choice whether or not they join. And it's really nice to see how in both cases, there are kids who will say to other kids and adults who will say to other adults, hey, why don't you come with, it's just a very, everyone has a choice in what they're doing. So again, that leads to this responsiveness to the needs and interests of the participants. We want to make sure that the activities are fun for everyone. One thing that is a big pitfall that can happen with intergenerational programming is a form of infantilization of the elders, that we sometimes, one of the things you need to avoid is making it all about doing things that are very childlike. Now, I want to say that in a lot of cases, the elders really enjoy doing that because they know they are interacting with the children, and yet you want to make sure that it's not all geared to them. So you'll see in the later slides that there are opportunities for them to do things that are together, that are meaningful for everyone. Learning through play, that it's active, engaging, they're playing together. Intentionality, that there is an intentional purpose to every single one of the programs. It's not just let's go up here and sit together. It's like, what are we going to work on today? So you'll see that there is a form to, like a set schedule to how they do things together. Welcoming environment. So you saw that picture of Jill's house. That fireplace is so warm and loving. So just making sure that the environment supports the engagement, learning, and success. And that includes not just the physical space, but the human beings involved and the material resources that they have. And then the last 3 are for the children, especially that there's cultural competence and relevance, that it is relevant to them and who they are and their own families of origin, that there's a continuity of learning. So there's opportunities for collaboration and integrated training, so that the teachers don't just come up without any training. All the teachers and facilitators are trained about both generations. And what their developmental needs are, and that there's a reason for assessment for learning, which then is used for planning further. Mm-hmm. So the day.
Yeah, so the programming, like we said, is always intentional. And I do trainings with staff at Jill's house still, and they carry on that training when I'm not available. And so they're encouraged to always plan. And it's more on the preschool staff to do the planning than it is the staff upstairs, but they are definitely very helpful. And we start every time upstairs with some kind of a greeting, and we typically make sure that we say hello to each resident by name and each student by name. And it's very important that they hear their names and they feel that they matter in that space. And it can take, sometimes you could see with that large group picture that we had with so many kids and so many residents, sometimes it takes a long time to get through everyone's names. But it's the students, the goal for us is connection and to build relationships. So we want our students to be able to say, oh, I was with Wanda today and we talked about this, and they want to, when they get there, then they see someone just like this picture that you see on the right-hand side where the student's running up and hugging Phil. And it is, they know him and they enjoy building this relationship with him. And it's really important for us to make sure that the students know who the residents are. The residents feel that they are, even though it is memory care, so often they do not feel like they know them, but they're surprised and excited to see them nonetheless. So that's another reason why we always do that greeting and introduction. So then the activity involved, we try really hard again to be intentional with activities, and we do activities typically that revolve around some skill that students need, but also something that can be sharpened by the residents that helps them. Anytime we do any story that can connect to an activity or has a song that's involved, it kind of brings it all together for both groups, and it kind of triggers memories and things for our residents. These are activities where we connect to stories, and we know many of you may know the story of the kissing hand, and this was something that was very sweet just for the students on their first day of school, but also for the residents, and sparked memories of, I remember taking my kids to school, or often it's, I remember when I went to school, and it brings up those memories. And there was an old lady who swallowed a fly, even though we do say old lady in it, they still love it. And I do change it to they'll cry instead of dying, because that's a little more conscientious, I think, for everyone involved.
Yeah, here's another.
Working on different math skills, drawing, writing, things like that. We did Who Stole the Cookie from the Cookie Jar? So that's kind of a triggered memory for many residents. They remember hearing that when they were younger, and we worked on that. We would have them collaborate on drawings and art, and that also engaged with the story. And then just understanding each other and the world around them. I believe that the one picture on the left, she's handing him a mirror to look at himself to make a self-portrait. And then on the right, and this is pre-COVID, on the right, you wouldn't believe it because they're all wearing masks, but that's because they were learning about going to the doctor, and they were the doctors, and they came up to do some appointments and checking on our residents. So that is what that picture is from.
Trying to move everyone out of the way.
And then teamwork, working together. Like, we want that engagement of them working together. And this specific picture with the bubbles, that's not necessarily something that older groups want to do by themselves, but they enjoy doing it, and it brings purpose to them doing that when they do it with the children. And in this circumstance, this was actually a situation where this resident was pretty far along in their memory care and their dementia process, and they didn't remember how to do this. And this is the student helping that resident remember how to blow bubbles. And we would have dance parties as well, lacing cards and things like that are good for fine motor for our students, also great for fine motor for our residents, and it reminds them of sewing. And then just sharing interests and ideas. Sometimes we just come up with materials, and when we bring those materials up, we would sit back and watch and see how we could foster connections through that. The one picture is looking at dinosaurs. They do puzzles together, they build blocks together, and so many more things. And then we do sharing love and kindness together. This one picture, they read the folktale of the mitten, and they were making their own mittens. But then we also would do things like create cards for Meals on Wheels, and they would do that together. And then those cards would be delivered in the meals to people who needed them. We also would, I think it might be on, we don't have it in here, but we do community engagements as well. The firemen coming and bringing the fire truck and then showing how they gear up is good for the residents and the students, because both of them can get scared of that kind of thing. We had cops, or what is it called? Donuts or cops and coffee, I think is what they called it. And the police officers came for cookies and coffee and sat with the residents and the students and had conversations. We also the main goal for us is to keep the students and the residents active and to enjoy each other and build those community relationships. So this video,
this works.
Yeah, and this video is showing a birthday of one of our residents who was turning 90. I think she was turning, was it 90?
I think that's what you said.
I think she was turning 90. And it just shows like the love. All right, let's make this big. I don't know how we get sound.
I thought we had it.
Oh wait, click on this.
Thank you very much. That was so much fun.
So you can see like the love that's there. The residents like appreciate our students so much, and our students appreciate the residents so much. And, you know, during COVID, it was really hard for us to have the connections, but we are seeing it again. And it is definitely starting to feel like things are getting back to normal. I think we need
Trying to
make that
move
big.
us over.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. Make this big. So which one do I pick?
Is there something? Sorry, we're trying to make
I'm
it
just
large
gonna, oh, I
again.
know, here we go.
Okay.
So research, because I've been doing the research on it, she's been doing the hard work. I've been like reading books and stuff, and saying, yay, go. The benefits for the children that they find, and this is all research-based, a really good resource if you're looking for information on stuff like this is a group called Generations United. It's .org. If you find them, they are supporting, it's through the Eisner Foundation, a lot of work having to do with intergenerational programming of all kinds, all ages, including grants and money that they give towards organizations. So first of all, of course, it builds self-confidence. The children see themselves as capable. So here they are being able to show the adults how to do things, which is such a great chance for them to change roles for a bit. There's a positive and realistic portrayal of aging. They get this idea. They change their ideas about what aging is all about. I have to say, one of the funniest things about me going in is that when I first went in and I was masked and I'd go into the preschool area, I did have a child, you know, several of the children said, "Are you a resident?" Which hurt my ego a little bit, but that was okay. But also it was really interesting because they say things. This one said to me, and I'd say, "No, I'm here, I'm a teacher." And she'd go, "Grandmas can't be teachers." Or they try to make sense of this idea of, why do my hands like this? Are you a grandma? So that they get this idea of what aging is, and that aging is okay, and that there's capability to that. It reduces their fear of various abilities and disabilities. In long-term research, they see that children are more empathetic, are more comfortable with people who may have disabilities. Reduces the fear of older adults. We have one little boy who you'll see the picture at the end, who was afraid of his great aunt, and now climbs into the lap of one of the residents every time he runs up there, grabs her face, holds her, kisses her constantly. So we've seen such a change in just that one child is just a very visual form of what is probably going on with a lot of the other children. They see aging process as normal. So a lot of people ask about death and how that's dealt with. And what happens is that you're able to, often before they get to that point, they have already gotten to the point where they don't maybe interact with the children as much, but that becomes something that's really normalized, and that we can then have a conversation about and say, you know, like at the end of life, everyone dies, and just so that we can present it to the children in a non-threatening way. It teaches empathy and patience, like I said, a broader perspective, of change and growth. I can't read the bottom one because it's covered. Can you read that, Tara?
Here.
Oh,
Let's see.
we got it.
Broader perspective.
Broader perspective, and then young families are introduced to our community of older adults. So getting to have that connection they may not have when they're far away. You want to do this, or you want me to do it?
I mean, yeah. Okay. And then the benefit for the adults, they get that opportunity to be a role model. It's really a situation, especially when an elder moves into a residential living, it's kind of a loss of agency for them. Like they want to have that agency. And so it's kind of it's not always a happy time. And we often see, especially with memory care residents, that they can be pretty sad, and bringing purpose to their life is really something that's tremendous. And we often, and Cece would be there before I would come up because she was doing research. And so she would often be like observing the residents kind of in this more sullen, looking down, not smiling, kind of grumpy. And then I would bring the kids up and they would be reinvigorated. Like they would just glow and they'd be so excited to see them and to get to have that purpose to be doing something for a reason again. Reintegration into family life, which is also really important to them. And with memory care, it brings them back to their memories of being a parent, or even many of them, if they're further along in the stages, they remember being the grandchild and they will talk about that. Opportunities to give and feel needed, a sense of wonder and humor rekindled. I mean, kids do that for everyone. And for the residents, it's even so special. And one of the things we really notice is that with residents in this facility, with older people, they need time. Everything takes a little more time. And with little kids, they need time. You need to be patient and give them time. And we, as adults in the world, we are always trying to rush, hurry. And what they can have together is a time that they can be in the moment and have this sense of wonder and humor rekindled. Value renewed for past life experiences. So we've kind of already talked about that. A sense of purpose, then, same thing. And then at the bottom, involvement with children decreases the frequency of isolation and depression. And that is, to me, kind of like the best gift that we can give them is this 30 to 45 minutes a day that they are with these kids, that they can feel this sense of purpose, happiness, joy, and it helps linger throughout their day. And they'll talk about it throughout their day too.
Just related to Erickson's psychosocial stages of development, what's really interesting is that the later stages of generativity, that's the stages that the elders are in, and that's when you need to feel like your life has had a purpose. Goes really well with the stage of development that young children are at, where they're learning trust versus mistrust. And so these two groups being brought together, it's just like perfectly creates this circle of life. So and it's nice to see those stages that they need one another in order to have meaning. So then the benefits for our community, closer ties and friendships within the community that we get to see. It promotes partnerships among different groups, like Liz was saying, all the different groups that come into just one facility like Jill's house, but a place maybe where you guys are working, or groups that you're working with where you can create some of those partnerships. Definitely breaks down these stereotypes and barriers between generations. When they see that older people are capable, when older people see that children bring them joy, as well as, I love it because you always hear them go, there was one who would always say, I really like them, but I wouldn't want to take them home. So that, like it's a barrier, but that it's also this, like enjoying the good parts of everyone. It enhances those traditions and cultures in a community. So those things that they do together really brings that forth, broadens professional networks and enhances career opportunities, fosters respect and understanding of all generational groups. And this is all from the Providence Mount St. Vincent website. They are a really wonderful intergenerational program in Washington State.
And there's a documentary you can find on them as well.
Amazing documentary on them. So what we want to do with the last part of our conversation, our talk here, is to throw this out for a little conversation. Here's our little guy in this picture, who's the one who has such a connection. This is kind of fun too, this picture. That's a pretend cat that really moves.
It's like a little robot, like one of those little for real pets.
So the children love to, this resident holds this all the time, and the children, of course, are then drawn to it. It's really fun to see that connection. So connections between generations are essential for the mental health and stability of a nation. What we'd love to do is probably, I wonder if we want to see if Alyssa and Kelsey want to add anything, but then also we'd love to know what intergenerational practices you're involved in or interested in, and what is either helping or hindering you to get anything going. So we'll put that out there. Stop share, then we can see faces.
As folks are collecting their thoughts, I'll jump in and say, you guys have highlighted so many of the benefits, and one connection I'll make to what we talk about a lot in Btcc is it's a protective factor to be seen, to build relationships, to develop your assets. It's a protective factor against a lot of other things that could potentially be problems in the future. And so we, like on domestic violence or school violence, a protective factor, something that reduces the chances of those things happening, is to have connections with others. And this is a way of doing that. Another big one I see is the health benefit. We obviously can see the social emotional health benefit, which leads to a mental health benefit, but there are physical health benefits as well when we think about overall wellness. And so those are the things that have come forward in my mind, maybe that gave people enough time to think about their own responses to your question.
Thanks, Tara.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting you did say about that protectiveness. People, they've been asked before about, how do you make sure that the residents and the children are kind to one another? And there, I know that at One Generation, there is, they almost do kind of a test to make sure that the residents are able to work with the children. At Jill's house, it's a little bit different in that they do, there are enough eyes on everything. But if there is a resident or a child who doesn't seem like that they're capable of joining the group, then you guys have had to deal with removing someone or suggesting they do something else.
Yes. And it's been pretty successful thus far. And the primary goal for us is bringing quality and dignity of life to the residents that are in Jill's house, but also that's what we do as early childhood educators for children. So it's like respect and dignity of life for both groups.
Yeah. Questions or comments, or what would you like to do? What does this inspire you to think of for your groups? Or
do you have any questions? We're kind of putting them on the spot. But,
I know that's right.
We've got Kelsey Thomas and Alyssa Chapman. Kelsey's the director now, and Alyssa is the assistant director at Jill's house. And I didn't know if anyone might have any questions for them regarding what's happening currently, or I think there are some openings.
I have a comment, not a question. And I lost you guys briefly, so if my internet is going out, let me know, put something in the chat. But I really like how you're looking at the mental needs of the senior population. Sometimes, as we age or as people age, they're forgotten. And so just to see this unique relationship between the aging adult and the younger generation, and to see that interaction, so they truly feel that they're, not abandoned, not alone, but that there are people that they do care about. And I kind of chuckled when you said, I love them, but I wouldn't take them home. But isn't that you get to, love on them and send them back, So I think that if they do have grandchildren and the grandchildren are adults, then those grandchildren may not necessarily, they got their own lives. And so they may not necessarily be meeting that, mental need that they have. But these young kids who may not be their biological grandchildren, just coming in and just filling that space and place where they can, love on them and have conversation with them, where they can be respected. And the fact that you guys did put parameters in place to protect both the kids as well as the adult, I think that that's really, really smart. So, kudos to you guys for sharing that. And again, I apologize, I lost you guys for a few minutes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. One of the things that I like to share with parents of young children, and actually in teachers as well, is the idea, I think Toni Morrison said it, if not Oprah gave Toni Morrison credit for this, was saying every child just wants to sit. No, do you see me? Do you hear me? Does your face light up when I enter the room? And I really think that this is a program that gives children that opportunity, to be seen and heard, and faces light up, like when they come in. And the same with the elders.
Yeah.
They get that same sense when the children come in. What I'm hearing, a word that I'm hearing used in the intergenerational programming a lot lately, especially now that they're able to get back together after COVID, is, oh, this one is so special. This is my special one. And it's just beautiful to hear that between all of them, that they get that feeling of being special.
And when they have the opportunity to build like a closer relationship, and now for a while, we literally had a tape mark on the, well, we couldn't go upstairs for a long time due to COVID. And then we had a big piece of tape on the floor, and the students had to be behind it on one side and the residents on the other. And it was just like, hi, look at each other and just kind of wave. And it was not really giving us the benefits that we wanted to see. But now again, like students are coming up and they're running into the laps of the residents again, and the residents are like, hey, I'm here, you know, and it's truly amazing, and it's magic to see it all happening.
I love how you guys have centered the culture, like a norm of caring for each other and valuing each other. And I see that as so important in building our culture. You mentioned it's important for our country. Creating that as a norm in the culture, I think, shows that there are more benefits than to these specific individuals, but it's when they leave these spaces as preschoolers, this is a norm that they're used to, and hopefully they carry in to the spaces where they can influence as they get older as well, and they can model that in other places. So it inspires me to think more about, you know, if those of us here might not be directly linked to a preschool or to an assisted living or aging or retirement facility, where are the places we can do that individually in smaller units if we don't affect a whole program, or maybe in a slightly different way, maybe with a different age group, maybe with teenagers and elders, or maybe with a different, you know, a different combination of intergenerational ages.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities for that. Like if you're working with teens and you want to find, you know, if there's a project you work on and find a group of, you know, there are tens of people who are retired who would love to spend a little bit of time with elders or with children of different ages.
I don't think we take care of mentoring opportunities the way I feel like it used to be.
Mhm.
And I think that this is great with young children, but I often think about like teens and middle grade students really needing mentors in their lives. And how can we kind of develop programs within our communities that can bring those generations together, other than just, I know there's big brothers, big sisters, but that's not as prevalent in a lot of areas. But what other things can we do to bring those relationships together?
Yeah.
When thinking about those ideas, I also think about what would be the system needs or the structural needs that would support that. How can we build time into the day, or how can we provide resources so that those connections can be made? You know, a lot of times we might say, oh, we value this, we want this to happen, but if we're not supporting it logistically, then we're not giving it space to actually happen. So
Right.
you know, those of us who are in organizations where we have a chance to influence those kinds of things, it's important to think about the actuality of it.
Yes, and I've had the opportunity to work in 2 different school programs that are preschool or kindergarten through 8th grade. And what we were able to do in those spaces was very different than what I could do in a normal K through 5 or K through 6 school. And we had a lot of buddied programming, and we'd bring the 8th graders together with kindergartners, 1st graders with 6th graders, and mix everything up, and often do instructional things together with several different groups. And one of those schools was actually a multi-age, so it had that component as well. So I think there are so many ways that we can bring generations and programming together to benefit everybody. And I feel like we are just kind of on the cusp of even understanding how much we can do.
I do think one of the things that aids that the most is to try and have someone who's really dedicated to the intergenerational piece of something. So even when you say that, like, wow, what if there was one person whose position was to bring together the different age groups in a school or in a community, and how that would foster more and better. I would say that that's one thing that they have found in one generation. There's someone who whose job is just to do intergenerational programming. And so it's very deliberate. And of course, as we know, that's always makes a big difference when you have deliberate and planned activities. So,
yeah. And what if our community had more value with that as well? What if that was like a community office or a public office of, you know, how are we going to bring those connections together? Like it's huge. It would be very beneficial, but not everyone sees the value at this point.
but I like that idea.
Well, you guys have certainly brought the value to us. So you've shown your example and the benefits to community in general in what you guys have created and researched. And I think those of us can think about those benefits and where we can affect that in our spaces too. So I appreciate you guys sharing that. Our theme is on connection, and this is a unique type of connection, and I appreciate you highlighting that for us. Moving forward for the rest of our day, I want to thank Elizabeth and Cece for their time, and I hope to see them again sometime, either later today or in other work in the community. We're going to move into a lunch break, and we'll rejoin together in the same ways that we got to this link. So you can go back to the website and you'll see new sessions at 12:15. So thank you all for coming. If you care to offer some feedback through an evaluation, that's been posted in the chat. And if you like to do that immediately while it's on your mind, we appreciate that. If you'd like to think about it later, it'll be posted on our website as well. So thank you guys. Do you have a question there? Sorry, I didn't.
I just wanted to comment that I have known families who have brought their children to Jill's Intergenerational, and I have known teachers who have taught there. And on both ends of the spectrum, I've heard nothing but absolutely fantastic things in regards to how it is to work there, as well as how it is to bring children there. So kudos.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure. Great, thank you.
Well, those of you who need to shift away, thank you for your time. If anybody else had a last comment to share, we've got a little flexibility in time since we're not off to a new session.
I do have something I want to share real quickly. I would love to see a proposal. You talked about funding and how to make it possible. So I would love to see a proposal during our proposal period, which will be in January. I'll drop my email in the chat. And if you want to send me an email and we can kind of talk about some things, the impact area that I think something like Jill's house would fit would be probably in our mental health space, but we'll have to have a discussion and, see if that's a really good fit. So I'm gonna drop my email in here, but just feel free to give me a call if you have questions, but I would love to kind of chat about that before the RFP opens.
Everybody,
Thank
Michelle's the leader of the Bloomington Health Foundation.
Oh, great.
Awesome. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for that, Tara. I guess I should have started with that.
Great. Sounds wonderful. Thank you.
We've got it.
All right.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks for being here, guys. All right, we'll take it to break. Hope to see you later. Bye.
Okay, see ya. Wow, wouldn't that be great?